So Steve Shaw, I'm the director of Power for People, and yeah, we were the authors of that bill. We came up with this together with Nigel Cornwall, an expert on the system who previously worked at the department in its former guise, and Dr. Jeff Hardy, someone who's a senior officer at Ofgem, now at the Grantham Institute. So, and a range of others, including some of the people on the previous panel. But it's just a suggested mechanism of how you can establish local supply. The choice that ultimately legislators and the government have is to either use substantial subsidy to create it, which we know worked because we saw that working under the feed-in tariff. We saw substantial growth in community schemes at that time. And then we saw them completely flatten off when the feed-in tariff stopped. Or to change the way the market rules work. And there's only two principal ways that you do that. You either completely untangle the licensed supplier model that we currently have, which is what the first version of the local electricity bill aimed to do by making the cost proportionate and asking Ofgem to establish a local supply license, and then those proportioned costs create the ability for community schemes to sell to local customers if they wish, and make a viable business model. Then you get scaling up, or you piggyback on the existing model we have of licensed suppliers, which is what the second version of the local electricity bill did. Now, what's particularly interesting, and I would commend to the committee, is that the existing Secretary of State and the Labour front bench backed the local electricity bill last session. Indeed, Mr Miliband made two amendments to the Conservatives' energy bill at its report stage, New Clause 53 and New Clause 58, that were mirrored on the local electricity bill. So we have, in theory, a Secretary of State who supports this, and yet we've not heard anything about it specifically from him since the election. And so it would be very interesting if the committee could perhaps find out what the Secretary of State's position is on this established by experts process that he supported already.
You may well remind him of that fact. One of the benefits of local supply potentially, and this is something we're looking for in our inquiry into the energy transition and making the case, is that it is a good way of engaging people in the benefits of low carbon generation.
I feel you're understating it, and I feel that others who have talked about the benefits are understating it. It is essential. It's so powerful what it does. These examples are incredible. We can't afford not to do it. We must scale it up, and the only way it's going to be done is through a regulatory reform process. It's not about huge resource from government. It really is regulatory change will get you the results you want. I was asked by Pete Kapner from the previous panel to just say about, is the Community Energy Fund enough, the extra $5 million it's been given? We are so pleased and welcome the government announcement of that extra money for the fund, and it will be very helpful, definitely. But those kinds of amounts are only going to get you a small incremental increase. And again, you don't need to spend it if you create the regulatory framework that we've already proposed two versions of. I think a really good analogy is what we have with grocery retail. You know, if you're opening a big supermarket, what you have in terms of burdens and then ultimately costs is so much larger than if we have, you know, smaller retail, corner shops and so on, and we want both, and we have a regulatory system that largely, you know, creates that proportionality, and therefore we get the benefits of both. We could have that with energy, and indeed that first version of the local electricity bill, we attempted to do that. My final thought is to re-emphasise that I really think you need to get a ESNZ minister in here and answer why the shadow front bench in opposition supported the local electricity bill, and yet since the election we have not heard anything about it from them.